Right. All right. Well, hey, everybody. Let's see. We're just getting started here. We just hit the live button, so let's give it a few minutes to upload to all the channels. We're going to be on YouTube. We're on LinkedIn, and we're excited to be here. I'm here
Yeah.
with Courtney Oman. Courtney, nice to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Reconnecting. Long
Reconnecting,
time.
indeed. I am going to. So we've got a live link which allows us to. I'm going to put it in the LinkedIn uh, chats here because that allows people to, if they wanted to, jump in and either leave a comment or ask us a question. So it's there for you all uh, in the LinkedIn comments. So hang on one sec here. All right, Courtney, where are you dialing in from? Where's home right now?
Yeah, I'm in Santa Cruz County. I'm in a little town called Aptos. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. There's a surf spot here, Manresa.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's where I am. I'm on the Monterey Bay. I've got the redwoods and the ocean, and it's awesome. I love it.
That sounds awesome. And Courtney, we met. This is really fun. I mean, we met 20. It's almost been 20 years. 20 years ago.
I love it.
I do too, and it's really fun to be reconnected with you. But I mean, when we first met, you were kind of in a different place, different stage. We met during your time at Volcom. You had just come off a role at Oakley.
That's right.
So it looked like, and by all accounts, you were headed for a role in action sports, products, product development, but
I
a bit has
know.
changed since then, right?
That's right. That's right. So, yes, I'm currently in the tech industry now. I sell software. Yeah, I sell supply chain software and quality management software to mainly to life science startup companies,
Mm.
but really any industry. I mean, any industry vertical. But yeah, mostly manufacturing. But yeah, I love it. I love what I do, and it's like, I mean, it's real sales.
Yeah, and when we first talked as kind of a prep, that idea of you having that moment where you had to shift into becoming a salesperson,
Mhm.
diving into that profession, realizing that it's something you could do. I mean, that was a full pivot. So we're gonna go through all of that. But you moved up to the Bay Area. What is it, I guess, about sales? To hear you say, I love it. You know, I love that you love your job and your role. But what is it? What are you working on that's got you excited?
Well, currently, so I mean, in the moment, it's really fun and surprising today. Like, currently, I've got a deal that hopefully will close. You never really know until the DocuSign is completed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've got one that was here in Santa Cruz. I was working on it since 2019. I met these guys. And then about a week and a half ago, they popped back up again. Things went quiet. It was too early for a long time. And then about a week and a half ago, they were like, it's time to talk again. And then on Monday, I got all this information. And there was a merger last Wednesday. And they're like, we waited too long. And so all week long, I've been scrambling. In fact, just as we were dialing in, I'm like, I need to close this out because there's a flurry of activity. So yeah, we're like trying to get it done by today.
Uh,
It's like it went from 6 years to 1 week. Let's do it. So it's
wow.
very fun, but it's really fun. It's fun to crunch the numbers. It's fun to meet new people. It's fun to see. I was in this little office in downtown Santa Cruz, literally like 6 people in this little office. And now they're in a full manufacturing facility in Van Nuys.
Wow. And that pressure, I'm sure, is different, right? When we were working together so many years ago, we had the pressure of dropping the line, getting samples here on time, and getting product developed and working with all of our suppliers. But you're talking kind of longer lead times as you work with these clients, and then as a different type of pressure, quarter end, month end. If you can, tell me a little bit about the company that you're working with now, and maybe just how you found them or how they found you.
Yeah, great question. So, well, I found them because I was really had no experience in this,
Yeah.
quite honestly, and I knew I needed to change the game. I was not happy really doing what I needed to do. I was a new single mom. I needed flexibility. I needed to somehow ramp up my income. And I was looking around and seeing people doing this, and they seemed like they had flexibility and they were making good money. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, how do I do it? And I had knocked on my neighbor's door. I knew he sold software, and I'm like, can you help me? And then my other friend was not even really a friend. She was another parent at the preschool, and she was a headhunter. she was like, go start applying for every job that you see that is like that. So I
Mm-hmm.
just had happened to apply on Indeed, and they called me back, and I just went for the interview. It was a group interview. It was like nothing I had ever done before, but it was my job to find this job. So I drove 60 miles to Redwood City, and I was like, this is not going to be it, but I just have to go to this interview and see. And actually, to be honest, the first step was I got this call from Michigan, and I just let it ring. And I was like, I don't know who that is. I'm not picking up. But when I got the voicemail, it was my current boss, Mike Cook, and he's like, hey, I saw your resume on Indeed. Give me a ring back. And so
Mm.
I did, and we had a great conversation. And he's like, what interests you about sales? And I said, I'm a single mom and I need to be making some money. It
Yeah.
was like,
That
okay,
was the bottom line, right?
that was the thing. And he was like, okay, we'll come to this interview. It's a group interview. And and so I went up there, and I came out of there, and I was like, actually they had offered me the job, but they didn't tell me the range or whatever. But I came out of there, and I was like, I really like them, and I think they really like me. And it
Mm.
was very refreshing.
Yeah. Let's rewind a little bit because you were sort of in this space. Like I said, when we met, you were at Volcom, you had been at Oakley, then you were
Yep,
at Skull Candy, and
that's
then
right.
you were working on Bell helmets, and you were in that space. I mean, pretty entrenched in action sports, outdoor industry.
Hmm.
What was it that you talked about being a single mom? So you had some life events, it sounds like, but walk us through sort of going down one path and deciding, you know what, I'm making a left turn here.
Yeah, so when I think I really, so yes, so my life kind of took a shift, and it felt very sudden. All of a sudden, I was a single mom, and I was in a new place. We kind of moved here for my husband at the time. We
Okay,
moved
so
away.
you had been in Orange County for a long time, and then together, family, you decided to move up to the Bay Area.
So we moved from Orange County to Park City.
Oh, okay.
We were both working at Skull Candy,
Mm-hmm.
and then my husband at the time was being recruited by Apple. So
Okay.
that's what brought us here.
Got it.
And we made the move, and at that time I wasn't working, so I was momming it with two small kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then the marriage didn't work out, and that's okay. But I wasn't working, and then my marriage didn't work out, and so I had to dive right back into the workplace. And really, the only thing around here was bell helmets for
Okay.
what I knew how to do.
Yeah.
And I needed to get back into the workplace, and I really underestimated myself, and I underestimated my income, and I just needed to work. And that was a big mistake.
Yeah. Tell me about that. What do you mean by that?
I was like, I just need to be working. And so I kind of was like, I'll sort of take whatever position and I'll take whatever salary just to get back in.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't not working very long. I don't even know if it was a year, but felt
Oh,
so desperate to be working again that I was
yep.
like, I'll do whatever and I'll take whatever. Like, just got to felt desperate. And that was a huge mistake. And I think that set me up for sort of being underappreciated, underestimated. Everything about it was
Not good.
not good, not
Mm.
good.
So you get to this point. So how long are you working with them in that role?
I think just under 2 years, just under
A-
2 years.
And you have some sort of aha moment, or there a trigger event, something happens that you're just like, okay,
Well, I was doing all the work that I had been doing before, but I was not getting paid what I deserved, and I was
mm,
not being treated how I should have been treated. And I stood up for myself, and that did not work out, which is okay. That was okay. And you had kind of asked, like, were there failures? And there was a failure, so I applied for a position that I should have earned,
mm-hmm.
and I didn't get it. But in the long run, that was a blessing. Things always work out.
Yeah.
So that was sort of like that was a turning point where it was like, well, I've been working here for a year and a half, being underpaid and underappreciated, but doing the work of the level I should be.
Yeah.
And so of a management position. And then they didn't, they had an opening,
Hmm.
and I didn't get that position. And that's when I was like, okay, well, this isn't right.
Was it tough to? I think I know the answer to this. It can be tough to advocate for yourself. When a position comes up and you're like, "Hey, I deserve more. I deserve that role."
Hmm.
Tell me about that process because it sounds like you did stand up for yourself, and like you said, it didn't work out. But walk me through the emotions.
Yeah, so I was very frustrated. I was very frustrated, and then I got kind of reprimanded
Mm.
for like, well, you shouldn't have gone about it like that. And that really just at home secretively put me over the edge. And actually, now that I say that aloud, it put me over the edge in the workplace too.
That was the moment where you're like, "I'm out. I'm out," and
Yes.
not just out of the company, but like out of the whole thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, and I was like, you know what? This is so frustrating. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it through this product launch, go to Interbike, go to this trade show, and I'll see before I do something drastic.
Hmm.
I will go to this product launch and consider how I feel and how it goes. But I know this is not okay for me. This is not sustainable for my mental health and
Hmm.
everything about it. So let me go. It's like 6 more weeks to the trade show. Let me make it through that. And if and after that, see how it goes. And then when I come back, see how I feel. And I came back, and driving into the parking lot that next Monday or whatever it was even worse. And I was like,
Mm.
okay. And I remember my boss I remember being like, okay, today when I get home, I'm going to put my resignation letter together and da da da. And in 2 weeks, I'm out. And my boss had called me in, and he was like, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? And I went in there. Who knows what that was all about? And I went in there, and I was like, you know what? Now that I'm in here, I was like, I was going to get all organized. And now that I'm in here and the door is closed, like, I'm out.
You in your
I
mind, you're
just,
like, "I'm gonna put a plan together.
and
I'm
I
gonna
was
do
going to
this
put a nice letter, be
systematically."
very professional.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just can't. And he was like,
Wow.
I get it. And so
Oh,
that was it.
that's scary though too. That also I think that takes some boldness because single mom, you've got your kids, you're on this new thing. And so what happens then? So now you're just like, okay, great. I'm now back in the parking lot. I've got no job. What do you do? And this is when you go into mode of like, let's start hustling.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, and the thing was, everyone was like, you can't leave a job without having another one. But I was like, it was so counterproductive to go in there every day. It's
Hmm.
like, my new job is to go find the new job.
I love
Like,
that attitude. I remember you saying that. Yeah, that's great.
and to be clear, I had been noodling on this for a long time, and I had been saving. So I had 3 months. It was October. It was early October. And I was like, I have been saving to sustain my lifestyle until the end of the year. My goal was, I had really, I feel like, manifested it. My goal is before the end of the year to
Hmm.
find a new job, and I would like to start a new job like next January. Like, I will have something locked in by January. Like, that is the plan.
Yeah. Can I ask this? Like with the manifestation, like did you go through a proper like, hey, I'm saying this every day. I'm going through the actual manifestation process, or were you just like in the back of my head, I know this. I have confidence in myself. I know
I
this is coming.
The latter. I
The
was
latter.
just like, this is the plan. Like,
Yeah.
I must make this happen. Like, I have to make it happen. And this might sound kind of grim, and some terrible things have happened in the world, like, since this all happened it was 2015, and then I started this job in January of 2016.
Okay.
So, so I thought about this before our call, but what actually brought me a lot of comfort was to go like, what's the worst case scenario? Let me break it on down to what's the worst that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what is the worst that can happen is I have to sell my house and move in with my parents for a while, and maybe I work at Starbucks, take the kids, move in with my parents. I'm either in the mountains in Colorado or I'm in Savannah, Georgia, and I have to figure it out from there. Like, and I was like, that's not that bad.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. You were ready to do it.
I was like, it's better than this.
Yeah. And, and maybe almost coming to terms with that of going, okay, I've got a backup plan. Won't be
I
that
think
bad. I've already, settled on that. So
I
gives
think
you
that
some
was
freedom.
I think that was the thing. Was like, what's the absolute worst thing that would happen? And it felt better than going into that cubicle every day. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good when you have a contingency plan, you almost then
Mhm.
that's when you don't need it.
Right.
What Courtney, when you go, and what's interesting too, I think through that all that, though through that process, you sent me a note saying, at one point you were all in on going to law school
Yeah.
even. So that was another thing. Did that come back into mind? Tell me a little bit about that. And then were you maybe going, well, shoot, maybe I should go back and be a lawyer? Like, how far along did you get through the law
Definitely
process?
not.
Definitely
Um,
not. How come?
no. Well, so, and I think that that was a game changer too, because I think in my life, I always like was very strategic in planning.
Hmm.
It was like, okay, you finish high school and then you go to college. And then after college, what is the next thing? Like, what is the next thing, the next thing? And so in college, I was like, okay, I'll major in this, and then I'm going to take my LSATs, and then I'm going to go to law school. And so I was definitely like, oh, I'm definitely going to go to law school and I'm definitely going to be a lawyer. And then,
Hmm.
like that track, you're on that track. And so after college, and I had taken my LSATs and I had applied to law schools and I had moved to Orange County. I was going to go to Chapman Law School. Um, and I was like, it was a huge investment.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just not quite ready to go dive right back into school again in classes. But I love school. I do love school. But I was like, I think if I have a little work experience, that'll make me an even better law student. So let me
Hmm.
just take a year off. Let me work in some law offices, just a legal secretary, like answering phones, working on the files. Like you get a
Yeah.
little,
Get a taste.
you just get a flavor, yeah. And oh, I hated it. I hated everything about it. I
You wrote to me, you said it was hell.
It was, and I was like, let me try it. I was like, I think the first one was patent law,
Mm.
and it was just so boring, and everything about it was terrible. And then I was like, well, let me try another kind. And then I was like, personal injury, and that's the files and the people and the cases, and it was all just so grim. And then it was like, let me try another kind, and it was all just so negative and litigious. And then I was just like, this is not for me.
Hey, and shout out to our lawyer friends, right? It
Absolutely.
is for
And
some, but
hey,
it's
I have had some excellent lawyers
mm.
in my life that have helped me out tremendously, and I appreciate you, and I could not do it. So,
Yeah, but that's a skill to be able to, and it sounds like this has happened a few times. You get down a road and you're just going, I got to listen to myself here. This is not me. I've had that moment as well, and it really served me well to just know when you got to pull the ripcord and say, I got to get out. Because then you're wasting time if you would have spent another year, you go take the LSAT, like you're doing the whole thing. When you know in your gut, you got to listen. It's really tough to do though, right? Or is it not?
it
It,
can be, I think it could have been like, well, there have been times in my life too where you do waste time and you're like, I said I was going to do this, so I better stick to the plan.
mm,
But you're just really not serving anyone by doing
by
that.
doing that.
Like, but that taught me like, okay, the plan is, it's okay to not stick to the plan. That, I think that was a huge lesson of like, just stay open.
Yeah.
You don't know what is gonna, there's better things. And yeah.
I love that advice. It's okay not to stick to the plan because a lot of us, if you're an achiever, an overachiever, you're like, no, 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 this is the plan. This is the game plan. Stick to it. But I
Right.
think that's liberating to not always have to do it. When you look back, I wonder, Courtney, kind of when you look back, do you get a sense? Tell me what you see, sort of when you look at your resume now, and now that you've kind of mapped out all of these experiences, when you go through LinkedIn, you get all the logos and it looks great. But what comes to mind when you look back at your resume or your career so far?
Sometimes I'm like, am I a jack of all trades and a master of none? I don't know.
Trust me, I struggle with that all the time. I'm like, I've just come to terms with like, I think I am a what's the word? Like a hyper generalist. Like, you know what? Good at a whole bunch of things up here. Don't make me go down too deep because I'm just not good at, being the expert in any one specific area.
But you know what? But I'm happy. Like, I've had a great time.
Mm-mm.
And I was looking at, like, yeah, like you had listed out like the product development and retail planning and like all of these things. And each of those things was like the perfect thing at the time.
And you learned from, I mean, right? I mean, as you
Yeah.
start to, you're compounding all of those learnings, and those have, I'm
Yeah.
sure, influenced who you are now, right? Do you tap
Yes.
back into any of those
All the
lessons?
things. I mean,
Yeah.
and even like working with my life science clients, and they're building things, they're manufacturing things, and making a thing is making a thing. So
Yeah.
back, like even in my Volcom days, like being in those factories and like how to make a product in the supply chain, like global supply chain. A
Hmm.
global supply chain is a global supply chain. Like if
What,
you're
yeah, whether it's buttons and zippers or
or a
whatever.
backpack or a
Yeah.
heart monitor, like
Just takes parts, raw materials,
that's
processing
right.
those, coordinating
Logistics,
them all. Yeah, logistics of it all. Yeah,
that's
it's a good
right.
skill.
So
It's funny, I think the apparel industry making stuff, to your point, is like we had that opportunity, and it's so applicable to everything. And that supply chain is so robust and so fragmented. There are so many components. I remember when I did my MBA and there were engineers and a whole bunch of different people in there, and they're just like, your industry is crazy. They were like, wow, they were really surprised, how many different things we have to deal with, throughout a season, and
yeah.
in such short windows, right?
It is. And it's cool, like when I'm talking to people now, and I sort of sit here, I'm sitting here in Santa Cruz County, but I'll be talking to someone and they're like, oh, our factory is in Hyderabad. And I'm like, I've been to Hyderabad.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, wow.
It's like, Derek, we survived the Mumbai airport. Do you remember that back in the
Yeah,
day?
yes, yes.
So it's cool to be like, yeah, I used to go to Hong Kong like quarterly. And just, anyways, that was cool experience back in the day.
Yeah. Do you think there's a way to, are you do you think it's been intentional in building your career? Because I think, this mission that I'm on is just sort of looking at careers, getting young people to consider that a career is not just the job you get right now or the skills that you're building. It is this long-term thing.
Mhm.
Do you think there was a moment where you were sort of, looking back, were you intentional in building what you've built? Does it just sort of happen? How did things fall into place? Tell me, what will you tell your kids?
I think it's a combination of staying open,
Hmm.
but for me, I like to know how things work. So, and I also like, when I was younger and getting into like product development, uh, well, okay, hopefully I don't take things too sideways here, but I like being creative, but I'm
Hmm.
not really like artsy creative.
Yeah,
I'm more
okay.
like problem solving creative. Like, let's make it work. Let's figure out how it works and how to make it work. So, like, in product development, like, how does this all come together? And maybe I'd like to run my own business someday, and I need to know how that work, how all the things fit together. And then kind of when I was at Volcom, like taking that lateral move from when they needed a retail buyer for the Volcom stores to be
Hmm.
like, well, how does that all work?
Yeah,
It's sort of like maybe I'm not climbing this ladder, but I'm learning things. I
that's a
want to
growth
know.
mindset.
Yeah, I want to. It's interesting to me. How does it all work? Because someday you need to know. Like,
Yeah, or someday you're just like, I just want to bank that information because it's just good it makes you this well-rounded person who
mhm.
says, "Oh, sales account executive, I can do that. No problem. Like put me
Right.
in. I can figure it out. I know how to do this."
And I think that was hugely beneficial of when I interviewed like for this role. I
Hmm.
had never done this role, but I've been working with people this whole entire time who have been in my position. So it wasn't like I have no idea what I'm doing. So when I walked in there, it was like I knew all the questions to ask. I think that was the thing, was it was like I was very well seasoned. In fact, I think they thought I was a lot younger and I didn't. I think that's what impressed them, was I really knew what I was talking about because I had been working with people just like what I'm doing for years and years and years.
Yeah, but they took a. I was going to ask that. They took a bit of a chance on you because you didn't necessarily have experience. A lot of times they're going to say, "We want somebody who that's what you do. They sell. They know how to hit these goals. They're in
Right.
the business of it." you had to convince them somehow. You just gave us a little bit of insight, but what do you think it was that had them take that chance on you, not specifically being a salesperson already? They had to bridge that gap. Was it your personality? Was it your confidence? Was it just that background that you talked about?
Definitely my personality and my confidence. And
Mm,
then my boss, who I talked to, the Michigan guy who
mm-hmm,
called for the first time, he was the guy who was rooting for me
mm,
because when I walked into that room there was two other guys who did have software experience, and my boss was like, because the other guys, there were two other executives, and then my boss who were doing this group interview, and they were like, they had my resume, and they were like, a fashion degree.
like,
And they were and my boss was like, just trust me, just wait,
mm,
just trust me, because we had had discussions.
yeah,
And so then when I came in, he was like, just trust me on this. And then when we all got in there, and the other two guys were just so boring. And then of
mm,
course, like, they unanimously voted and picked me.
yeah.
And he was like, I told you. And so
So now that you get the role though, now there's this moment where you're like, okay, hurdle
mhm,
crossed, I did that. But
mhm,
now you have to shift, you've got to kind of shift into this mindset of, okay, I've got to sell products, I've got to
yeah,
learn about products, I've got these monthly goals, quarterly goals now.
yeah,
That's some pressure.
yeah.
How did you go about just like going into becoming a salesperson and like
Yeah.
nailing it?
And again, luckily, my boss is a coach, and he's like, I
Mm,
can coach the person. You know, you can teach someone skills, but you can't necessarily get the personality. Like,
yeah.
you know, you've got to have in a role like mine, you've got to have the right person. You can teach them something, but if you don't have the right person, then it's not going to go. They can have all the information, but if they don't have the personality, then it's not.
Yeah. So would you say that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what or who helped you get here? Was it a thing? We talked about confidence, curiosity, growth mindset. Was there someone that has played a role? Sounds like this gentleman, this boss,
Yeah.
played a role. Was that true? And was there anybody else or anything else that you would attribute?
Yeah, I mean, and I have the coolest team, like our company. We're all team players. I feel so fortunate. Like, it was definitely the stars were in alignment. Uh, Somebody upstairs is looking out for me, or a lot of
Yeah.
people. And my company's awesome. I know not every place out there is. So I feel so fortunate that it's a team environment. But definitely, and our sales team, like, we all work together. We're competitive. We all want to be on the top of the leaderboard,
Mm-hmm.
but we cheer each other on, you know.
Mm,
So
that's fun.
yeah, it is. It is.
What advice, Courtney, would you give to someone who wants to work in that space like you, wants to do software
Mhm.
sales, enterprise resource sales,
Yeah.
or who's considering kind of a career pivot? What does it take? Because it can be scary, both of those things.
Yeah, I think you have to have thick skin. You cannot take things personally,
Okay.
and you just can't be afraid of change, I guess.
Did
That's
you did you always have thick skin? Because that's something I think that a lot of us can struggle with. I'm like I want to be liked. I want to always just
right.
find agreement and not necessarily be told nope that's not working. Go fix it. So were
Right.
you always that way, or did you develop that thick skin?
I definitely have developed the thick skin.
Okay.
And I also know that, like, I'm doing my best. So if someone, like, now, and I think this comes with, like, growth and maturity, right?
Hmm.
So I know now that, like, if someone has an issue with me, that's on them, because I'm doing my best. And, like, that's all I can really say about it
Yeah. Okay,
is
that's fair.
is like, yeah, yeah.
What was I latched onto that thick skin one? What was the second one? Do you remember what else he said?
Let's see. Let's see. Some things are just not in your control. That was another one. Like, you
Okay.
have to relinquish control sometimes. Like, there was
Yes.
one you asked about, like, disappointments or failures. There was one deal that was so heartbreaking. because we worked so hard. And then it was like we came so close, and at the end they were like, oh yeah, by the way, our CFO's brother-in-law sells this, so we're going to go buy it from them. And I was like,
Mm,
oh, surprise. That is something we just could not control. And it was like, I asked a lot of questions for a long time, and they kind of withheld that information.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
Um,
I
how
don't,
important, what's that?
I don't know.
Yeah. Courtney, how important, when we look back as we're talking about careers and building your resume, how important was, you've got young kids that are getting to that age, mine are already there.
Yeah.
How important was your college experience? And what do you tell young people? What are you seeing in the marketplace today as people come into the marketplace and your peers in that space?
So to me, my college experience was extremely important. I value college. I think it's really important. I'm encouraging my kids to go to college. I think it's really important. I think when I went to fashion school to FIDM after college, it was really amazing to see some kids. A lot of kids went after college, like as a supplement to
Mm-hmm.
get into that industry.
Yeah.
And then there were kids who were there right out of high school.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see the differential in like written and oral communication, and just overall like the maturity level. And I could see that crossing over. I think that's why it was so easy for me to get a job at Oakley, and like, just like resume, like the way I wrote my resumes. And it was definitely okay. So really important to me as an eye opener coming out of high school. I got great grades, and I thought I was the bee's knees in high school. And then I
Mm-hmm.
went to this big university, and I was exposed to so many different kinds of people who had so many different amazing skills. And I was like, huh, there's really actually nothing special about me.
That's a humbling moment, right?
And I think that's really important. Like,
Sure.
the world is a big place, and there's a lot of amazing people with a lot of amazing skills. And
Mm-hmm.
like, we're all amazing in our own way. But like, at the end of the day, like, you know, just like you said, stay humble, stay humble,
Yeah.
stay
Yeah.
humble.
What do you think you got? What was your biggest takeaway from it? Was it because you had a anthropology degree? Is
That's
that right?
right. That's right.
And
I mean, come on. But
right, exactly. But
oh,
you did that, and then you decided to go a different path. So what was the big takeaway from it all?
I think it's important, like the big takeaway, I don't know, critical thinking.
Yeah.
I came from a military family that was sort of like, you do what you're told, you stay on track,
Mm.
right? Like, and I think I was 20 years old before a humanities teacher told me, like, Courtney, it's okay to question authority. That doesn't mean you're like doing anything wrong, but
Did your gut sink? You're like, I
I know,
cannot
it
tell
was
my
like,
do not let my parents know this.
right, totally, like what?
Yeah.
I'm horrified at that thought. No one's ever put those words together in that way before. Like,
Yeah.
but I mean, that's real. So you learn, and just to be able to write a paragraph, like write an email in a professional way. Like, I mean, now there's Chat GPT, but come on.
Oh, geez, that's like the next thing that we need to learn to embrace. But that's a growth mindset as well, right? It's like, okay, that's something new. Let's go
Very
tackle it.
important.
Let's go learn it. Yeah, and
Yeah,
let's figure
that's
it.
what it's all about.
What do you, Courtney? Is there anything that you wish you would have known, kind of looking back, when you were starting out? Because I think the fun thing about being a parent is we look at our kids, and I don't know about you, but that's I think the only language I know is giving advice. I only speak in advice in terms, which I think drives my kids crazy. But what do you think it is that you would have told yourself now looking back, or that obviously you're trying to pass on to your kids or other young people just getting started out in their careers?
I think not to beat yourself up, like there's always going to be hurdles. Like, tomorrow is a new day. Like, you just you learn, like, right? Learn from the failures. Don't be hard on yourself. I think it's important after like the law school thing. I think getting out there, it's almost more important to learn what you don't like and what you don't want to do as much as what you do. And like so
Mm.
much is glamorized, and that's fine, but like I don't think it's all as glamorous as things are portrayed out in social media or on TV or on all these things. But like what is really like, can you not suffer through? And like maybe go from there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, start out with eliminate what you know you don't want to do.
Right.
It's really I do think it is. I feel for young people because there are so many options, and there are so many different paths you can. And it can be. I think it can feel really overwhelming. And I had asked you earlier if you thought it was intentional, but I know very few of us are. We decide what we want to do when we're young. We go and study it. We land that job. We work until you work until retirement, and then your retirement fund kicks in, and then life is golden. It's like there's all these twists and turns and things you need to be ready for. And I think a lot of what we do is just a matter of preparing yourself for all of those things. I mean, I would imagine you didn't expect to be a single mom in a city that you were just sort of new to, changing careers and trying to figure it out, right?
Right. And I think like just to remember like nothing's permanent, right?
Mm.
Nothing's really permanent. And I had another thought like nothing's permanent, and you just never know. Like just stay positive, I guess. I don't know. Not like, yeah. I
Would
lost
you,
my thought.
yeah, no, it's good. And I think, would you have tweaked anything about your own path if you could?
Um, that's tough to say. Not really, because you just some things are just out of your control. You just
Hmm.
don't know what you don't know. You know?
Yeah.
We're all just doing our best. But like you said, when you feel bad because there's so many options, my thing is when the kids have to kind of try to choose a major going into college, I think that's really hard. Like when I went to school, it was undecided until you kind of figure one out, and then you're like, this is kind of fun to study. I'm not sure how much you really know what you want to do.
Yeah, I don't think you know a lot either. And I think there are only a few schools that kind of, I forgot which ones, that have you go in as undecided, and then you kind of pivot into your major. But you're right, most of them are choosing their major, and chances are you're not going to work in that field anyway. But
Right,
it's hard to see that far out, right? At that
right.
moment, it's just that's everything, and that's the school I need to get into, and those are the courses I need to take. It's a lot. How old's your oldest?
She is 17. She's a senior.
Senior. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Senior right now?
Senior right now, yeah.
Yeah.
So we actually, in a few weeks, will be down in your neck of the woods visiting schools. So she has her acceptances, and yeah, she's gonna make a decision by May 1st.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, stressful
Mhm.
times and exciting times though too, right?
Exciting, exciting,
It's
exciting.
so weird. I think one thing I'm really interested in is I think nobody ever talks about parenthood in terms of adult kids or even like semi-adult kids. You only think of parenthood for like elementary school, maybe up to middle school, and once it starts getting into those weird consequential, more serious times, I think that's where everybody's like, "Oh, we don't really talk about that." But then you're in it. You're like, how did I not ever consider the fact that I'm raising 16, 18, 19, 20 year olds, you know?
Right, right.
It's so weird.
Like, yeah, don't talk about that.
Well, there's a lot to talk about. Courtney, what's on the horizon for you? What do you think is next when it comes to career? In our last few minutes here, I want to get a sense of where are you going, where's your head at, and kind of final bits of advice you might have. But what's on
Yeah.
the horizon for you?
I'm really happy doing what I'm doing.
Hmm.
So hopefully I'm gonna be here for quite some time, just growing this part of the business. And after that, I mean, yeah, no, I have no intention of making any drastic changes anytime in the near future.
Hmm.
So I'm loving it. I'm happy. And if anybody needs any software, I will give you the deal of a lifetime if you mention Underswell. And
Yes.
um, but yeah, no, I'm just pumped, and you just never know what life will bring.
What
That's
kind of real quickly, what kind of software do you sell? What is it good for?
so we sell ERP software. The
Hmm.
main one is NetSuite.
Okay.
So it's really good for startup companies, even like in a lot of like action sports, a lot of my apparel buddies use it. So we do little startup company special packages and implement it for like inventory tracking and stuff like that.
Okay.
But also quality management type deal, like dock control and training and some accounting things, that type.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I always like to do this, Courtney. I give the opportunity for sort of a soapbox, if you will. Give you an opportunity to shout out anybody or anything, or even call out something that you're just like, "Ah, I'm kind of really bummed on this." Anything that comes to mind that you, if I gave you the mic and just said, "Hey, the
Sure.
soapbox is yours."
Well, I'll give a shout out to my mom because she definitely was like, you need to be able to support yourself. So she encouraged me to go to FIDM when I wasn't sure what I wanted to do and to go
Mm.
back to school, even though I had a degree and that was really cool to encourage me to do that.
Yeah.
And then, obviously Mike Cook at Strategic Information Group and the Strategic Information Group team, the whole crew is the best. And then sometimes we're looking for interns from time to time.
Mm.
So if anybody is out there, maybe check it out on the website and see if you're interested in doing something like that.
Are those internships, are they remote opportunities, hybrid, on-site, or a
I
little bit of everything?
so I think remote, maybe hybrid. Our headquarters is in North Carolina. I'm in Santa Cruz. I don't know if we have anyone down south right now, but depending on where you're at, I don't know. We're flexible. So think about it and you can connect with me. And I come down there pretty often. So
Cool. And best place for people to find you and connect with you,
I
LinkedIn,
would
I would
say
imagine.
LinkedIn. Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
do LinkedIn. Let's do LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, we'll put all the links there in the show notes. And Courtney, thank you so much. Thanks for making time for this, especially with your sales deadlines. Good luck on closing these deals, hitting
Thank
your
you.
quarterly goal. You're gonna
Thank
do
you.
it.
Thank
We've
you.
manifested that for you. So
Thank you.
great catching up. Thanks for sharing all your story.
The pleasure is all mine. Derek, you're the best.
Thank you.
So, all right. Happy Friday, you guys.
Happy Friday. Thanks, Courtney. And
All
we'll
right.
talk to you later. I'll
Yes.
close it out here for the last few words. So thank you, Courtney.
Bye, guys.
See you
Good
later.
luck.
Well, that was great. Super awesome. Courtney's great and really a lot of fun, exciting things there that she's doing. And I think a lot of good advice in there for people to take away and learn from. So follow her on LinkedIn. Check out her company. Check out those internship opportunities that are there. And just a quick plug: this episode was brought to you by my School of Understanding. If you need sustainability support, you want to do some sustainability training, foundational learning for your team, be sure to check out the underswell.com/SOU for School of Understanding. And if you want to do a professional podcast profile and you want to get on the podcast with me and build a profile for yourself so that you've got a short show that you can send to people so that if you want to get a job with Courtney or someone, you can say, hey, check out my podcast. So people can see how you interact, how you engage, what your personality is like above and beyond just your resume or your LinkedIn bio, then hit me up at theunderswell.com / what do we call it? PPP is what it is. Podcast, professional podcast profile. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one. We'll see you next week. Thanks again, Courtney. Bye, everyone. Awesome. Courtney, thank you so much. Thanks for sticking around.